Welcome everybody. Welcome to a webinar made especially for you by me. I hope that through our time together tonight, you're able to learn something, to find some golden nuggets and be able to put something into place right away, hopefully as soon as tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started. The name of this one is Sometimes I Can't Help Myself, How I Get in My Own Way. And I hope that you have close by, within arm's reach, your favorite art supplies, your favorite gel pens. I hope that you've downloaded and printed or have available on your desktop or laptop the notes page, onto which you can keep all of your thoughts and all of your ideas for going forward, all in one place. So if you've got all that ready, then let's begin. Don't forget, go get some water if you need some water. All right. So I'll wait. Go ahead and push pause, go get water, and come right back. All right, I'm guessing you're back by now. So let's go ahead and get going. Sometimes I can't help myself. How I get in my own way. So before we get started, here are our group agreements. Now, I know we're not live in a group together right now, but as we go forward, you might be in a small group at your school or with a team that you work really closely with. And hopefully during our times where we kind of break out or have a pause, you have someone that you can dialogue with about this or can write your thoughts down and use it as a time to write and put your thoughts together, okay? But you may be in a group setting, and if so, let us agree to these. All right. So the first one is what is shared here stays here, and what is learned here leaves here. So if you're with a group that is sharing some information or talking about children who are specific to your classroom, please be mindful to keep that information confidential, just as we would in any kind of live together training. That's kind of an important piece. So that's the first group agreement I would like to invite you to join me on. All right. The next one is to be open. Be open to new ideas, consider it, percolate with it a little bit, and decide if that resonates with you or not. Does this bring up new ideas for you? Does it inspire you to think differently or to really look at your own practice right now and see how you can do something differently? All right. So be open. The next one is be engaged. So be here, be present, have all the things close to you that you need, your snacks, your water, your tea, whatever it is, your favorite gel pens, right? Close by so that you can be as engaged as possible, right? I know I plan to do that, and I hope you do too. The next one is to participate full out. So when there's a prompt, I challenge you to really think deeply and use this time as a time for you to learn and to grow, not just that you're just checking a check mark off on your professional development to-do list, but that you leave with something. And this time is valuable for you and useful for you, right? Not time's wasted. Okay, the next one is if you need to pause this webinar to get up and stretch or move to take care of your body, take a bathroom break, heat up your tea again, please go for it. So if everybody's good with this, if you're feeling good with this, let's carry on. Okay. So who am I? My name is Amy Williams, and I'm Amy Williams Academy. I am a parent of two daughters. You'll see them here in my photo, and that's my husband Craig in the back, Millie in the front, Abby next. There's me in that crazy hat, and Craig in the background. Craig and I have been parents for, well, let's see, Abby's 23. So we've been parents for that long. I've been in education for, gosh, over 2 decades, working with and alongside families and teachers and directly with children for all of that time. It's my great honor, and I'm very excited to bring some stories and some anecdotes from my role as a parent, my role as an educator, my role as a coach here to you tonight. I am also a coach. So right now, I'm so excited to be able to work alongside teachers and work alongside families to do and learn better ways to support the children that we care for and that we love and that we share a deep respect for, right? So that's another role that I fill. I'm a school counselor. I'm this director of student services and support at the Portland Montessori School here in Portland, Oregon, which is where I'm coming from you on this. It's a May evening here in Portland. I'm also an expressive arts therapist and dance movement therapist. That's my background and my training. So all of that informs the work that I do. It's not a dance class tonight, but I absolutely encourage you to have your art supplies ready and to doodle, to write on your notes page, to get up and move if necessary. All that keeps your brain engaged in a different way, and learning happens on a deeper level, right? So that's what I have sharing with you tonight. It's kind of where I'm coming from. So that's who I am. Um, Here's our agenda. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. So first, we're going to talk about the difference between adult-centered and child-centered teaching styles. We'll talk a little bit about how we were raised and how we were taught in classrooms and in other kinds of settings, and how that influences the type of style that we've developed over time, and what is our go-to, what's our method in the classroom or in our interactions with children. So we'll talk about how we have developed our own style, and does it still suit us or not? Do we want to do something different, right? Okay, next, we're going to dive into 4 different sabotages. All of us have, there's generally 4 buckets, different types of ways that we get on our own way, right? Sabotages that maybe we've learned from parents or other important adults in our lives, other family members, people that we've worked with, people that mentors of ours, people that we've taught alongside. So we learn that and we weave that together, and sometimes it just doesn't work for us anymore. We see ourselves kind of trip up on ourselves and get in our own way by talking too much or putting things off, or maybe we get into negative talk, right? So we'll dive into those specifics shortly, and there is an art prompt at that point. All right. Next, we'll talk about the idea of unmet need and lagging skills. So yes, we're going to talk about some Ross Green tonight, and we'll talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and a little bit more of some recent history that I've learned about that hierarchy, but more about that when we get to that point. Next, what do you do? What do you do already? How can we set a goal for moving forward, right? Setting a goal that is specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. That kind of goal is important. Self-care is important. What is it that you do for yourself to keep yourself at the top of your game? So we'll touch on that a little bit, and then we'll round out our training this evening or this afternoon with the topic of classroom team meetings, right? So how can you have a gathering of your community of students to talk about what's happening in the classroom? How can you connect with the teaching team, the other adults who work alongside you to support the children in your care, to clarify and be bold and vulnerable about what's happening, right? So we'll talk about that, and that'll round out our time together this time. All right, so that's a full agenda. Let's get going. Before we go too much further, I want to give credit where credit is due. Absolutely. Joanne Nordling is the author of a book called Caring Discipline, and many of these ideas came directly from her work. So I just want to give credit to her, and she, in her decades of experience as an educator and a coach, and someone who's a parent coach and a teacher coach, these ideas were put together. So I'm taking pieces of her work and some experiences from my own experience, and what I've learned from coaching teachers over many years, right? So I just wanted to give her a shout out. If you don't have that book, I highly recommend it, all right? Okay, so the idea of adult-centered and child-centered teaching styles or parenting styles comes directly from her work, from Joanne Nordling's work. So here's the deal. Most of us fall somewhere between adult-centered or child-centered, right? So if you're thinking about your style of teaching, your style of parenting, I imagine it as an arc of sorts, one side being more adult-centered and the other side being more child-centered. And ideally, we want to be able to have some agility, to be able to move closer to adult-centered when necessary, and then closer to child-centered when necessary, and how to determine which the situation calls for. So the idea of adult-centered and child-centered teaching styles is an interesting something to consider and to talk about, definitely with your teaching team and the other people that you work most closely with. Okay, so let's talk first about the idea of adult-centered. What is that? What does that look like, right? So The aspects of adult-centered kind of look a little bit like this. The idea that the adult knows best what children should do, right? So do as I say right now is kind of an overarching description, right? An adult-centered person, teacher or parent, might think children are too experienced. They're too young to know what to do. They need me to make the decisions in this circumstance, in most circumstances, right? Okay, the next one, children should not be allowed to annoy the adults, right? The adults are the leaders, they are the final say so, and the children do as the adults direct or say, right? A person who is more adult-centered doesn't have any conflict or any struggle about when to correct a child. There's not a question that a child might not like them or not love them or be angry with them for offering guidance or corrections, right? That doesn't cross an adult-centered person's mind. Now, that's somebody on the farthest end of the arc, right? Next, adult-centered teachers and parents feel really comfortable offering quick and direct, clear discipline, right? Feel very comfortable doing that and almost believe that that's my role and that's my responsibility as the teacher or the parent to offer that guidance right away, right? So there are strengths and weaknesses to this approach, right? Some places that feel really comfortable, and some circumstances where that may not be necessary, and that's one way that you might get in your own way, right? If you tend to be more adult-centered, sometimes struggles that happen in the classroom can be made bigger because of the idea that the adult knows and the adult says and the child must follow, right? Now, that's one end of the spectrum. And certainly there are times when it's necessary for the adult to be the center, right? Definitely when it's a safety issue, right? We certainly want you to be able to tap into your inner adult-centered teacher when it's a safety issue, when you're crossing the street, when glass is broken in the classroom or something dangerous is on the playground, right? So that's when the adult steps in and gives clear direction without worrying about hurting a child's feelings, right? So there are times that it's important to be more adult-centered, right? Now let's go to the other side, the other end of the arc. What does that look like? What does child-centered look like? Okay, whoops. There we go. Okay, child-centered. What does that look like? Now this is, we're going to talk about the other end of the arc, right? Of course, you're probably going to find yourself somewhere in the middle, right? So we'll talk about that. So child-centered, what does that look like? The adult who is more child-centered experiences a tremendous amount of inner struggle when and how often do I correct the behavior? What do I say? Was that too harsh? Was that clear enough, right? So there's often more inner dialogue and inner questioning about your approach or your method in a particular situation, right? Someone who is more child-centered often wonders whether a child will still love them or like them or want to be around them if they make too many demands on the child. Are my demands too big? Are my expectations too much, right? So you see there's a lot of inner dialogue that happens typically with someone who tends to be more child-centered. Okay, another one is they wonder if they're allowing enough room for the child to express themselves. Am I offering enough freedom for them to be the person that they are supposed to be, right? Those kinds of thoughts cross your mind. They think, do adults have the right, just because they're older, to tell the child what to do and how to do? That is another question or thought that goes through the mind of someone who tends to be more child-centered. You have a strong belief that if I'm kind, if I'm understanding and fair, children will respond by behaving in a similar fashion. That's another thought that crosses the mind. Adults only need to love children and then stand back and watch the children blossom. That deep faith that all will be well if the child is given a lot of freedom and the space and the permission to be fully who they are meant to be, right? So there are strengths and weaknesses and struggles on this end of the spectrum as well, right? Now let's pause a moment. And as I've described those, think about the important adults in your life who have been influential. So maybe it was a parent, maybe it was an aunt or a grandparent or an uncle, some important adult in your life as a child who influenced you, right? Who you would consider, okay, that was an important, influential adult in my life, okay? It may be a teacher, right? So you're thinking about an important family member who was influential. Think also about a teacher, how you were taught. For me, the first parent that I think about is my dad, my father, who tended to be really far on the side of the adult centered, right? And then my mom tended to be kind of in the middle, right? I had a lot of freedom when she was concerned, and when my dad got home, woo, the freedom just it evaporated, right? So I learned as a child when I could go and play in the mud, and then when I knew I needed to be clean and sitting where I was supposed to be sitting when I knew my dad came home, right? So you may have some experiences that are similar or are different than that. And in addition, let's think about the teachers in your life, the important teachers in classroom. I think of my second grade teacher, Miss Fox, who talk about adult-centered, man, whew, heaven rest her soul. But wow, so adult-centered. And when I think about an influential teacher in my life, she's the one who comes to mind first. Interesting, huh? There are other teachers who, of course, have influenced your life, for sure. Think about those write down the name of that teacher or those teachers who you feel rise to the top of your mind, who you first think of. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about that and take a pause right now and reflect on that. So I want you to get your writing materials, and I'm going to give you some time to pause and reflect on that. So the prompt is get your pencil and paper, and now is the time to write about your own style. How would you describe your style? And if you're with another colleague viewing this webinar and you want to turn to your person that you're viewing this with and have this conversation, I really encourage you to do this. If that person's not with you right now, I really encourage you to take this question and this reflection opportunity back to your teaching team and have a conversation about it. Ask your friend, hey, Abby, I see you in the classroom, and this is kind of how I do. I'm more adult centered, and I would describe you as more child centered. Let's talk about that, right? Okay, so I'm going to be quiet for a few minutes and allow you some time to pause and reflect, right? So pen to paper, or if you're with somebody, have the conversation with somebody, but definitely write down some thoughts and some notes, right? So time to write about your style. What do you do? How would you describe your style? If you could place yourself on that arc between adult-centered and child-centered, where would you put yourself? Most of the time, right? So, we do slide from one side to the other. And the ideal is to be able to be nimble and know, oh, here I could be more child-centered. Here I need to be more adult-centered, right? Often that comes with time and experience and self-reflection, right? Okay, so what do you do? How would you describe your style? And is it similar to the way that you were parented or the way that you were taught? How is it similar? How is it different? Did you make a clear a decision that I'm not going to do that? I'm not going to be my dad. I'm not going to be my mom. I'm going to do something differently, right? Okay, so I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to have that conversation or to write down those notes. And I'll turn my camera off, but the recording will keep going. Okay, so we'll just take a pause and we'll open it back up in about 10 minutes. Okay, so see you soon. Okay, that's been about 10 minutes, so I'll ring the bell to come on back. Okay, I hope that through that exercise you were able to find something new or to, oh, whoops, excuse me. Let me turn this off. So funny. Okay, here we go. No, no. Oh, look at me. I'm having slide issues already. Here we go. We're back. Friendliness with error, am I right? Okay, so I hope that you had some time to consider and really deeply think about how you were influenced as a child and how that plays out in the classroom and how you interact with children and maybe with others. If you're in a leadership position, this absolutely relates to how you lead and how you coach others, right? So that's another layer to put on that as well. Okay, so moving on from here. Now we're going to talk about our sabotage superpower. So imagine, okay, there are lots of ways that we get in our own way, lots of ways. But oftentimes, many of the ways that we trip ourselves up can fall into one of these four categories. Okay, so they are these. One is procrastination. One is talking and talking and talking and talking. Number three, the third one is negative scripting, where you find yourself saying things from a negative perspective. Don't do this. How many times have I told you? What's the matter? You know, that kind of with a negative tone or the words that you use or facial expression, right? All that kind of combines. Are you more positive or are you more negative with your tone, the volume, the words that you use, and your delivery of your message to children? Okay, the next one is forgetting to give attention, 4 to 1. So think about this as when you tend to children or acknowledge them, pay attention, smile at them, recognize them, more often than you giving redirection or offering guidance, right? So we want to do 4 positive attentions to each one redirection or what we might consider more negative attention, okay? So that could be a sabotage that you do. You find yourself saying the name of a child who is having more difficulties or more struggles in their classroom. You hear yourself saying that child's name over and over and over again, right? So we'll talk more deeply about that in just a second. Now, as we think about these 4 different types of sabotages, one is going to rise up and be one that you go, yep, that's me. Totally. I know I have one that I have worked on for a long time, so I'm getting better at it, but it's taken a lot of self-reflection to, one, notice when I'm doing it and then stopping myself and doing something different, right? You can do the exact same thing. I'm going to share with you what my superpower is when we get to it. Okay. So the first one, let's talk about procrastination. What does that look like? So the sabotage of procrastination is this: you just, instead of acting the first time a behavior creeps up that's inappropriate or not acceptable or is challenging at that particular moment, you just kind of say, oh, that's okay. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to let my lead teacher or my assistant teacher or nobody deal with that. It'll solve itself. How many times have we done that? Now, here's the deal. All of us have done all of these at one time or 10 times or 100 times before, right? It is true. We make mistakes and we commit errors. Let's be friendly with that and give yourself a little bit of grace and forgiveness. So when you do that and you go, oh, there I go, I procrastinated again. Okay, take a deep breath. What can you do differently? Is there a way to repair it right then and there? Great. If not, commit to doing something different the next time, right? So you're growing with each moment of self-reflection. When you see yourself doing the thing and you could stop and go, there I am, I'm doing the thing again. What can I do differently? Let me practice doing something different. Okay, so that I just want to be a message going forward for all of this. Okay. So procrastination, instead of acting the first time you see the misbehavior or the difficult behavior, you just let it go somewhere else. I'm going to go to the bathroom now, right? Okay, the next one, let's move to the right on the slide, is talking and talking and talking. Instead of carrying out the correction that's necessary for the difficult behavior, for the struggle, with as few words as possible, you just keep talking. When maybe it'll take one word or even a nonverbal gesture of your boots go on the shelf and you point to the shelf, or you might say boots, point to the shelf, right? So when you can do it in one word or two words or three words, great. But if you have the superpower sabotage of talking and talking, you tend not to do that. You tend to take an entire paragraph to describe why the boots go on the shelf. And this is why, because people will trip on them. And then, the boot shelf's really messy. And why I'm having to say this so many times. And you keep on going. And by the time we get to the end of our talking and talking and talking, our rant, children have tuned us out, right? And our voice becomes wah, 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 instead of them receiving the information, processing the information, and then making a decision on what to do based on what they heard. That whole process of receiving information, processing that information, and then carrying out an action is complex for young children until they have had more practice, right? So during times when they may be dysregulated, that difficulty becomes even greater. So the more words that we use, the more difficulty we create, right? Clearly, this one is mine. This is my sabotage. Not only when I'm working with children, but in a leadership role, I tend to talk more than's necessary, right? I can get the point across in a couple sentences, great. I'd like to wax poetic and bring in research and talk about, well, in this time, and let me tell you about a story here and that. Sometimes this is not necessary, right? Sometimes in training, during webinars, maybe I'm talking too much. Let's go to the next one. Okay, this third one is forgetting pant. And this is the 4-to-1 I was talking about earlier. Forgetting to pant. Now, pant stands for positive attention at neutral times. And that's when you give attention to children when they're doing something that is intended to make us feel great, or they're doing something that makes us annoyed. Right? But it's during those middle times, during those neutral times when they're not doing anything necessarily to get attention or to get some sort of affirmation from us, right? Or from someone else. And it may be those moments they've finished a work and they've put it on the shelf and they're just deciding what to do next, or they're moving from one side of the classroom to another. In those moments, if we can catch their eye contact or make eye contact and smile at them, right? Oh, that's just amazing. I think it's Toni Morrison who said, "Do your eyes light up when they enter the room?" Everyone wants to be noticed and be seen. So during those times when we see them or notice them, not interrupting their work or offering direction or telling a story, but those short, often nonverbal moments when we could smile or wink or thumbs up, or you're going to have your own way and your own method of panting, right? I tend to be a winker, so that's my pant. I have lots of them, but that's one of my go-tos, or this one. So it's just a little connection that you make with the child that doesn't, it's not a big deal. It's often nonverbal and it's short, it's brief, right? So more of those moments, please. Those moments build relationship, and that's what we're going for, right? Okay, so think about that. That might be your sabotage, that you forget those moments. You forget to take advantage of building that relationship and deepening the connection with the individual child, right? Okay, so that's that one. Now let's look at the last one. Negative scripting. So instead of using positive descriptions and tone, remember delivery, all of that, when you're talking about or to the child, we tend to go more negative, right? What's wrong or what's difficult? And wow, sometimes it may be that we get into negative scripting in front of the child when we're talking with our teaching team and we're trying, or a person who is in the teaching team with us, and we go into why this is happening during lunch, and we got to figure out a way to help, Isaiah get in line because he's taking so long to pack away his lunch. Well, you may be in Isaiah's earshot, and what that does is break down the relationship between you and that child, right? So negative scripting can be when that happens in front of the child, and when it happens outside of the child's earshot, when you're talking with your teaching team or your partner about a particular child and you're talking about what's wrong and what's the matter and this is the struggle and this always happens, right? That negative scripting can get really into us and into our perspective about that child's identity, right? So that's a particular sabotage that we get in our own way because we develop scripts and ideas in our head about often about particular children, right? So we find ourselves, if this happens to be your sabotage, you might find yourself watching for that child to kind of live into that negative script that you've created, right? It's like the stories that you tell yourself. You know, Brene Brown, I don't think you'll ever take a webinar from me when I don't mention Brene Brown because, you know, professional crush on her. I do have. But Brene Brown talks about the idea of the stories that we make up, the stories that we tell ourselves that are often fiction. And with each retelling of those, it shifts a little and gets even farther from reality. All right. So that's a little thought bubble to think about. But when we do that negative scripting, it becomes our reality and our expectation of what that child is going to do and going to be. And does that serve the child? Does it serve us? No. Right? Okay. So one of these, or maybe two, rise up and you think, yeah, that's mine. I do that. Right? So we're going to take a moment and pause here. It's another time to pause and reflect. So get your paper and your pencil, time to get vulnerable. And if you've got art materials, here's where I would love to do the art prompt for you guys. So it would be for bonus. It would be for the extra woohoo thumbs up. But if you want to draw your superpower sabotage cape that you would wear as your costume, maybe you're designing your Halloween outfit right now. Way to go. So imagine going to a party and some people say, what are you? I'm the superpower sabotage of negative scripting. Anyway, I digress. So take a few moments and I'd like for you to consider and pause and reflect. What's your go-to? What's your sabotage? Looking at these four: procrastination, talking and talking, forgetting to pant, you know, the 4 to 1, and negative scripting. Which one comes alive for you? Bonus if you want to draw your cape. Bonus if you could tie it to how you were parented and how you were taught. Is it similar? Right. Okay, so I'm going to turn off the camera so you don't see my face, and you can continue on. I'll have some music going low in the background, and a cue to come back is when you hear the music fade and you hear the bell ding. Okay, so we'll go for about 7 or 8 minutes. So good luck. Okay, we're back. We're back. I hope that that time was useful, and maybe you hadn't thought about the ways that you get in your way, and with those 4 different buckets, one of them resonated with you, or shoot, maybe you came up with something different. I'm so curious. I would love to hear about that. So if afterwards you found something that was interesting or kind of, whoa, I hadn't thought about that this way, I'd love to hear about those aha moments. So please, shoot me an email, amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com. I'd love to hear that. And I hope that in your reflection, you were able to think about, okay, there was a particular time and I did that thing, and this is what happened in the classroom. In that moment, how could I have given myself some grace, right? Or going forward, because you guys are going to do it again. You're just gonna, because it's ingrained, it's become a habit, right? And so now that we're self-reflecting, that from self-reflection can come change, right? So when you see yourself doing that thing, what are you going to do to give yourself a moment and either repair in the moment when you can, or how are you going to do it differently the next time, right? Yep, that's what I want to say about that. All right. All right, let's carry on. Okay, so this next bit is a challenge to share. So if you're with somebody and you've already done that, great. If you're solo watching this webinar, I encourage you to put a star beside it and put a date by the time you want to do this, and talk with a colleague or talk with a friend about this. And let's hear about how sharing your sabotage, how you get in your own way, right? Yes, that takes vulnerability, and that step into vulnerability takes some courage, right? That's my challenge for you, is to be vulnerable and be courageous and share that with somebody, ideally the person who is with you in the classroom, so that you can help each other out, right? When you see each other doing that thing, how can you best receive feedback from that person that you trust and that you've worked on building a professional relationship with? How do I want to hear from my colleague Angela when I'm talking too much? Maybe it's a this, or there's some kind of nonverbal cue that I can go, okay, there I am. And then I could just shut up. I could just stop talking, right? So think about how you can connect with your trusted colleagues to be able to help each other out and help remind you, right? Because it'll be a habit that may be difficult to shift and change, but with friends and partners helping us out, we can do it. All right, let's see. So this is the part where I'm going to invite you to do a stretch break. So what I'd like for you to do is pause for a second and excuse me. So wherever you are, I'd like for you to just stop and stretch your arms. Don't stop looking at the screen for a minute and look away, look up, look down, look to the side, to the other. Okay, stretch your arms across this way, this way. Stretch your arms up, and press your hands and your shoulders all the way down. Shoulders back, and down. Open your mouth really wide, your eyes really wide. Okay. So that's a good stretch break. Okay. Of course, you're welcome to do that anytime. But right now, that was one for me and one to invite you to do that as well. Okay. So shall we go on? Let's. All right. Okay. Here's a slide that has a ton of information on it. I know. I get it. Let me know. You can email me afterwards and I can send you the document that has this on it. So if you want to print out this document and put it up in your classroom as a reminder, or you want to look at it more closely, feel free. Just let me know. I'm happy to share this. But check it out. So you may remember from your Psych 101 class in undergrad, or maybe in high school or graduate work, where you talked about Abraham Maslow and the idea of the hierarchy of needs. Right. So the hierarchy has just been kind of reconfigured for us to talk about in more of a staircase. And again, this is a nod to Joanne Nordling and her work. But when we're looking at this staircase of needs, Abraham Maslow did lots of research and worked with people, and he actually had a long-term relationship with people in the Blackfoot Nation who informed him about this. And some would say he kind of took it and put a twist on it, and he did. So there's more, there are articles and people who have written about that. Happy to share that as well. But that relationship informed this work. So I just want to give a nod to the history of that here. But for today, let's talk about it as Maslow received it, understood it, put it together, right? The Blackfoot community had more of a sense of community being one of the pillars and the basic needs for a human need. So imagine that being kind of superimposed on this, right? More on that later. But for tonight or today, let's look at this in this way. So Maslow decided human beings, there are universal needs for human beings in general. And here they are. So the first one from his perspective is the need for physical, need for physical needs. Do I have food? Do I have shelter? Do I have someone to hold me, right? And if that need's not getting met, all of the other needs that come beyond it are just a little shaky. Do difficult behaviors spring up when a child's basic physical needs are not met? Yes, absolutely. So when a child maybe doesn't have enough food to eat, is unsure of shelter, is unsure of do they have someone to hold them? Yes, they will be seeking out getting those needs met by any means necessary, right? Sometimes in ways that work for you and your classroom community, and sometimes in ways that don't, right? So let's step on beyond that physical. The next one is security. I feel safe. The world is a trustworthy place, right? When you think about that universal need, what does that look like to you? I feel safe. The world is a trustworthy place. Can I depend on people doing what they say they're going to do? And can I depend that I can go to sleep and things will be safe? I will feel safe. The people around me will be safe, right? Okay, the next step is the need for belonging. This is where I belong. This is my place, right? I belong here. These are my people. I feel comfortable here. I feel secure. I feel like I have my physical needs met. So these needs kind of build on each other, right? So when you prepare your classroom, there are lots of ways that you help make sure that physical security, belonging, and the others, those needs are met just by the design and how you curate your classroom. This is where I belong. Do you make cubby tags? Do you make snack tags? Do you have photographs of children's families in frames on the shelves? I know some classrooms and some pedagogies do that, right? To really connect the home to the school by bringing in family photographs or the important adults in a child's life to have them as a part of the classroom. When a child sees that or sees their name on their cubby or they see their name on a necklace or something like that, they get a sense of, okay, this is my space. This is my cubby. These are where my boots go. This is where my coat goes. This is where I have snack. That is one way, one of many ways that we help meet the need of belonging just by laminating snack tags. Who knew, right? Okay, so beyond the need for belonging is the next one, being, love. I am loved just because I exist, not because I am strong or smart or beautiful or I have a sparkly dress or I have a big pool or my parents' car is really fancy, right? I'm loved just because I exist. I'm loved even when I make a mistake, even when I'm messy, even when I'm really annoying to those around me. I'm still loved because I exist, right? As we're going along these steps, think about what you do to promote these, to help get these needs met for the child, right? So you can help the child get that need met in ways that are efficient, that are useful, that are clear, right? Okay, so being, love. The next one is competency. I have skills and abilities. People respect me. So think about the ways that that happens in your classroom. When a child receives a lesson or they are working with the material and you see them get it, right? If you know that moment I'm talking about where a child is trying to figure out how this thing fits into another thing and they get it and it's like, right? Those moments of, yes, I got it, I could do it, right? Sometimes we may use this skill or we may use the idea that a child, that sense of skill and I'm capable, I'm competent, I can do hard things. We can weave those into experiences throughout the day, right? Like, okay, Allison, would you please carry the clipboard while we go out to the playground? And they just puff up a little bit because, yes, I have skills. I am so confident that my teacher is trusting me with the clipboard or with the walkie-talkie or to carry the tray of milk cups to my friends or whatever, right? So there are ways that we help encourage children to experience getting their need for competency met. Make sense? Okay. So the next one is self-esteem. This is like the top one according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Would be a little different if you spoke with different cultures about what would be like the top need, right? On the progression to self-actualization, which I haven't mentioned, but down at the bottom, you see that long, thin arrow, and it says self-actualization. And that's the idea of a human growing confidently, competently, successfully, with happiness and pride in feeling like they are expressing their full authentic self-actualization, right? I feel like I'm putting like an entire an entire semester of this into like 10 minutes, but nevertheless, here we go. So self-esteem, yep, that's the top one according to Maslow. And that is a sense of, okay, I've got all these other needs met. I'm loved just because I exist. I belong here. I have skills. People respect me. I feel really good about myself. I like myself. I'm pretty amazing. And everybody else, I like them too. Everybody else, you have something to contribute. You're competent. You're loved just because you belong and all of that. So that is kind of like the when we see that happen, we see that sense of children existing in our community with happiness and with joy and with the ability to concentrate and the ability to take pride in their work and to stick to things and to do hard things, right? That's when we see those moments that we want to create more of, right? And as teachers, when we are looking at each of these needs, how are we assisting the child to get that need met, right? That takes us to the next slide, which is about Ross Green, right? So you may have heard about Ross Green before. Ross Green talks about the idea of unmet needs and lagging skills. There's more on that. Gosh, you can Google it. He speaks about it on YouTube. There are books, right? So if you want to know more about that, I recommend it. I'm super excited when I first learned about this and used the idea of unmet needs and lagging skills as a way to figure out, okay, how can we help in the classroom, help this child in the classroom become more successful? Unmet needs and lagging skills were like an aha moment for me, right? Okay, so yes, another professional crush. I have a lot of them, okay? So unmet needs and lagging skills. Get this, challenging kids are not always challenging. You see this right here. They are challenging only when the expectations placed on them outstrip their skills, right? So I come from a place, and maybe you do too, that thinks a child will do well if they can. Ross Green said that too. A child will do well if they can. Just let that sit for a second, right? If we can take that mindset when there's difficult behavior in the classroom and we can just give a little grace to the child who is trying to figure out stuff and trying to gain those skills, trying to meet those needs that aren't being met, it gives us a little more pause, right? So we don't have to jump in automatically and do our sabotage of maybe negative scripting or forgetting to pant or procrastinating, right? We can think creatively about how we can help this child get those needs met. What is the lagging skill? In some classrooms, Montessori classrooms in particular, do something called grace and courtesy, which is a teaching how to do a thing. Excuse me. And it could be something as simple as how to push in your chair when you're finished, or how to turn your chair sideways when you're coming back to your table, how to walk around someone's work, how to blow your nose, how to wipe your bum, how to ask a friend to play, how to stand in a line, right? Excuse me. So grace and courtesies can be ways that we help teach lagging skills. If the unmet need is a sense of belonging and the lagging skill is how to how to extend a successful bid for connection, bid for friendship. Maybe a child really wants to play and they want to have friends, but they just have lagging skills there, right? So I have a story to share. Several years ago during a summer camp, a teacher brought two children to me, to my office, and you could tell the teacher was, it had been a long day, it had been a long week, right? And so an ask for help from me. So, okay, cool. What was happening? What happened? And one child was holding his arm, crying. Oh no, well, what happened? And he showed, and there was like full on bite mark, right? And first I was thinking, oh my gosh, did it break the skin? We need to make a call to the parent. I mean, I was thinking like an administrator at that moment, going, okay, what do we need to do safety wise? And then I find out, okay, oh, are you okay? Oh, would you like an ice pack? Oh, did you wash that? Let's get a Band-Aid, like that kind of thing. So that was happening. And then the other child, I said, oh, can you tell me what happened to get that child's perspective? Because at this time, his affect was unaffected. And he was like what? Turns out when asking what happened, he said, I just wanted to play Legos with him. Oh, there. Unmet need of belonging, right? Friendship, connection. Lagging skill, how to ask a friend to play. So at that moment, it wasn't a full-on grace and courtesy, but it was a, hey, sounds like you wanted to play Legos with your friend. You know what some other kids have done when they want to ask someone to play? And he seemed open to it. So I said, sometimes they say, hey, would you like to play Legos with me? Or can I play Legos with you? And then your friend may say yes, and then you can play. Or they may say no, and you can say, maybe next time. So again, lots of words. This child was older, but it gave some options, right? Gave some skills of words, of script, what to say, how to say it. What do you do if they say yes? What do you do if they say no, right? So that kind of borders on grace and courtesy bleeding into a social story where you teach how to do a thing that has to do with social skills, social interaction, how to ask a friend to play, how to be calm in a line, how to lead the line, how to et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so turns out the other little boy was holding his arm, crying, still like, woo. Would you like to give it a try? And he said, sure. And he said, do you want to play Legos with me? And this little one said, oh, okay. In that moment, the teacher and I locked eyes like, oh. It was one that was precious. And yes, he did it. He practiced how to ask a friend to play. So you don't have to bite. You can actually ask, would you like to play Legos? So, long story short, arm got washed, Band-Aid, injury report given to the family, explanation, it was all good. And there they go, back into the studio to play Legos together happily, right? Oh, right. Okay, so that's an example of unmet needs and lagging skills. And I'm sure that you have seen lots of examples about this unfold in your classroom. Now, going forward from today, let's, pause and reflect. Think, oh, excuse me. First, before we pause and reflect, I want you to think about a particular student that you have in your mind, right? It might be a child that brought you to this class, right? And you're thinking about, okay, I need some help with this particular child and this particular collection of behaviors, right? So put that child in your mind and think about 2 or 3 particular behaviors that are especially problematic, right? That kind of undermine peace and harmony in your classroom, right? So you got that in your mind. You got that child you can picture. You've got those behaviors kind of like, yep, that and that. Now, my challenge for you is to, oh, excuse me, is to pause and reflect a moment on that. What is necessarily, what might be, what would you consider the unmet need or the lagging skill, right? So I don't know if you took a if maybe you took a picture of the hierarchy of needs or not, but what I could do is I'll put that slide back up so you can look at it for reference and think about, how might this child be trying to get that need met? What need is there? What need needs to be met, right? If we look at the behavior with this perspective, our attitude can't do anything but adjust, right? So if you're looking at, oh, oops, pardon. There we go. Okay, so take a look at this. And so this is the hierarchy. And what I'd like for you to do is think about that particular child and the particular collections of difficult behaviors. And we're going to pause for a shorter amount of time. So I'm just only going to give you like 4 or 5 minutes to do this and think about what need might be not met, right? And how could that difficult behavior be an attempt at getting that need met? Right? Okay, so I'm gonna give you a few minutes. I'll have some music playing as a cue, and then I'll ring the bell. Okay, so here we go. now it's time to come back. All right, so now we're spending a lot of time with this staircase. And yeah, let's just finish up with hidden unmet needs. This can be your student's biggest struggle of all, right? The staircase resource is a really good one to go to. It's not necessarily the be all end all, but it's a place to begin thinking more deeply about what's the underlying need, what's sparking this behavior, right? Children, I got to tell you, it's not a secret maybe, but they're really not trying to be jerks. They're trying to get their needs met, just like us. We don't necessarily want to be jerks. I hope not. We're trying to get our needs met. We want to be human. We want to be seen. We want to be valued. We want to be heard. We want to have a sense of belonging, that we belong here, that people care for us. All of those. We have those needs too, for sure. But as a construct, let's take a week or two to look at that and have that in your classroom as when something difficult comes up, think about what's the unmet need, right? That could be their biggest struggle of all. And what's the lagging skill? What is it that you see, right? So taking a page out of Janet Lansbury's, if you were to write down what it is that you see without any kind of words of judgment, like emotion, words of emotion, angry, sad, frustrated, right? You could say seemed frustrated, or you could say furrowed brow, shoulders tense, jaws tight, right? Loud, loud words, right? Okay, so as you're practicing your skill at documenting and writing down what it is that you see when you're considering what is the lagging skill, that will be helpful to you when you can get, more objective about what it is that you see, right? Like just the facts, right? If you were to describe it to somebody, to let them have a picture of what is happening, what kind of words would you use, right? Okay, so lagging skills. So you could go back to the behaviors that you've seen before and think, if you haven't done this already during the pause, think about how you can introduce that skill and offer opportunities to build that skill, right? To kind of flex that muscle of asking a friend to play, or for asking to sit by the teacher, right? Or getting the sense of connection with others, or connection with you, or connection to the materials in your classroom space, right? And that could come through grace and courtesy, or a well-written social story. So social stories is a different class. So if you're interested in that, give me a call. If you have a topic that you want a social story written about, I love writing social stories. So give me a call. I can help you. And you can do it too, right? So let me know if you want more information on the idea of social stories, and I could send you information on how to write a social story. What is the beginning, middle, and an end of a well-constructed social story? And I'll hook you up, all right? Doesn't have to be something that you don't know about, right? Okay, so here we go. You're like, hey, hold on, Amy, I already saw this slide. Well, we're going to look at it from a different point of view, okay? So yes, unmet need, lagging skills, you got it, for the children, right? Okay, so now, when I'm going to ask it to turn the attention to you as a teacher, as a human being in your classroom, in your space, in your career. What are your unmet needs? What are your lagging skills? Yes, I'm asking you to be vulnerable one more time, to be courageous, to do some self-reflection, right? So it says challenging kids are not always challenging. They're challenging only when the expectations placed on them outstrip their skills. Take the word kids out and put you. I am challenging. I'm not always challenging. I am challenging when the expectation that either I place on myself or the role that I provide has expectations that outstrip my skills. Where can I get those skills? One, what are those skills that you're missing? And two, where can I practice those skills? Where can I learn them? And it might be through professional development. It might be through mentorship or partnering with someone that you really trust and that you work really closely with, right? So that's one way. So all hope is not gone. You can get those skills. But first, the work has to be done in self-reflection. Yes, I'm saying it again, self-reflection. So you are reflecting at what is my unmet need? Do I feel like I belong here? Do I have a sense of security? Does it feel safe? Right? Do I feel competent? Do I feel like I have a sense that I'm contributing? Do I feel like I'm a part of the community? To look at that overarching original thought of the hierarchy of needs, my sense of my need for community. Am I a part of that? And what are some skills that you're missing that you want to learn and put into place, right? So here's again the teacher edition. Okay, it looks the same. It just says teacher edition on it. It's the same hierarchy, the same skills. Okay, so this is what I would like for you to do. We're not going to do a pause and reflect right now, but it's kind of a home practice that I want to invite you to take on after we do this. So circle this on your notes as a to-do, right? Take some time and look at your own self and your own behaviors, your own what it is that you do. You guys, it can get so deep. If you want to look at your sabotage and consider, how is that a lagging skill that is attempting to get one of these needs met? Ooh, okay, that can get deep, y'all. So I'm going to let you tend to that outside of this webinar. All right. So challenge going forward for you. When you take a look at that hidden unmet need, your hidden unmet need, that could be your biggest sabotage of all. It might be reflected in your sabotage if we look at the four that we were looking at, and it could be something a little bit different. But when you have a need that's not being met, that could be the biggest place where you trip yourself up. Remember earlier when I was talking about humans, we have these needs and we will do whatever possible to get that need met, whether it works or whether it doesn't work, right? We're getting something out of it, right? Okay. That's another little thought bubble we could talk about another time. But take a look at this. Are you taking care of your own needs? Right? Who are the people that you can talk with about getting that need met? Right? Remember that we are all works in progress. Give yourself some grace and permission to continue to work and to do the work and the self-reflection. That's what it's going to take, you guys. Right? You're not going to get that from me telling you what to do from this webinar. Sorry. It's your own work. How exciting is that? All right. Yeah. Okay. So the next part is your lagging skills. What is it? Oh, excuse me. Let me go back. Your lagging skills. Honestly, where can you grow? Now, the next part of this, I am inviting you to think about, where do you want to go professionally? Where are those skills that might be lagging that you want to learn more of? Maybe there is a class that will be helpful, or a webinar, or a coach or a mentor. Shoot, give me a call. Happy to be your coach around those places where you feel like you're missing some skills. And think honestly and critically, wow, I need to grow in my knowledge about children with sensory needs. I need to grow in my area of using positive phrasing. I need to grow in the area of communicating with parents, with communicating with my colleagues. Those are the places where I can grow. Now, you don't have to do this in a vacuum. Do this all by yourself. Most of us work in a place or are in a place where we have a boss, we have a supervisor, we have a coach. Often ideally, that is the same person, right? So how can you ask for that, right? Go to your person whose job it is to support you and to make sure that you have the tools you need to do your job really well, and say, hey, check this out. I took this webinar and Amy said, and here's where I need to grow. How can we do that, right? And together you can collaborate, right? And find out how you can get those skills. Hopefully you're getting some of those skills tonight. Okay, so we're getting to the end of our time together. So I hope you have your piece of paper close and handy. And the invitation is to make a list of four aha moments that you got from our time together. Okay. So think about, maybe it was something from Maslow's work. Maybe it was something about the sabotage. Maybe it was something about adult-centered, child-centered, right? Think about all the things that we've talked about tonight. And what were your 4 aha moments? And I'm going to be quiet a moment and let you write those down. That's going to be hard for me because remember I told you talking was my sabotage. All right, you got those 4? All right, that's great. Put a star by them, draw a rainbow around them, whatever it is that can help reinforce those aha moments into your brain. So tomorrow, when you're back in a classroom, or next week when you're back in a classroom, or whenever you get back into the presence of children, how is that gonna play? How is it gonna be different? How is it gonna be the same? Okay, love that. So now's the part of the show where we create a goal. So this is like the time for professional action. What is it that you intend to do? So yes, you've talked about adult-centered, child-centered. Yes, I know what my sabotage was. Yes, I know how that was influenced by an important adult in my life. Yes, this is what I do. Yep, I know about needs, know about lagging skills, all of that mess. All of that stuff. Now let's get to the real deal. What is it that you intend to do, right? I have found that creating something that's called a SMART goal, a goal for yourself in the way of SMART, specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based, is the most helpful for you to stick into it and holding yourself accountable, right? So that you actually do what it is that you say that you're going to do. So we're going to take some time now to create a SMART goal for yourself, right? So think about what it is that you want to do. Where do you want to grow? What's your goal? What is it specifically? So write that down. Measurable. How many times are you going to do it? Right? So it might be that I am going to self-reflect and notice my self-sabotage in action and count the number of times I do that per day, measurable, and decrease that by 50% within 2 weeks or 3 weeks. That's where the attainable piece comes in. Set yourself a goal that you're actually going to reach. Otherwise, that just stinks. I mean, who wants to give yourself a goal that you're not going to make? I'm going to lose 20 pounds in the next month. I'm not going to do that because I will just tell you guys, I'm not going to do that. It's not attainable, right? Yes, it's specific, it's measurable, but it's not attainable. Too much information, I'm sure. So as you're creating your specific, measurable, and attainable goal, is it relevant? Does it make sense? Does it matter to the community of children that you work with? Does it matter to your community of your school community? Does it matter? Does it make sense? Is it going to have an impact or affect change? And time-based. Give yourself a goal to revisit this to see if you've made this goal in a month or 6 weeks or 2 weeks. Often shorter goals, little smaller, shorter goals are more easily attainable. So that's just a little tip. And the next part is to do this next thing. Share it. So let's hear those goals. You don't have to share them with me. You are welcome to email them to me. I'm happy to be that person to call you in a month or so and say, hey, did you do that thing? Happy to do that. But you don't need me. Turn to your people who you work most closely with, right? Turn to your colleague. Hey, Sandy, I've got this goal. I'm supposed to self-reflect and I'm going to do it 50% less. So next week, I want you to check in with me, right? So share the goals that you have with the people that work most closely with you. Also share them with the people who are your coach and your mentors, your supervisors, your bosses. That's their job, is to be your coach and your mentor, right? And to help you attain these goals. Bet you $1 they will be that person for you. Okay, so who is that person? Write it down. So I'm going to be quiet a second and let you look first at creating a specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based goal, and then write who is your person. Okay? I'll be quiet a second. Okay, you got it? All right, we're moving on. Okay, this next little bit, because we're coming to the end of our time together, is about team meetings, the idea of team meetings. And I just gotta tell you, I love this picture because first of all, what are they doing? Are they trying to clean each other or telling each other secrets? Or are they saying, hey, here's my SMART goal. Will you reach out in 2 weeks? So silly. Okay, so team meetings. Yes, this is what this is for. When you think about the person who's going to help you with your goals, decide on a time when you can get together and discuss this, right? Do you already have regular times to talk professionally without children present? If not, what's the obstacle in that? What's keeping you from finding that time where you can do that very important work, which is pivotal to improving your work with children, right? So team meetings with each other. And over here, there's another way to look at team meetings too, as a way to have you had team meetings with your classroom? We call those classroom meetings, right? So for instance, if you are seeing a collection of behaviors that aren't just one person or two children, but it tends to be a behavior that's affecting the whole community, you know what I'm talking about? Like when one behavior, we might call it contagious, it happens and then everybody starts doing it and you're like, oh my God, what? That might be a time to come together, either in small groups, and then talk about what you notice and what you're curious about. I notice there's a lot more running in the classroom, and our classroom agreement is that we walk in the classroom, right? So begin to make that conversation happen with the children in your community, right? And what's the solution? Turn it to the children. I notice that there's a lot of running, and our agreement is that we walk in the classroom. Now, if you don't have classroom agreements, that's something that you want to do. What do we agree to do with each other and for each other so that we can be a peaceful, happy community? If you don't have that already, do that thing so that when you have a team meeting, a classroom meeting about a particular behavior or set of behaviors that have become contagious, you can tie it back to our classroom agreements. Like remember, we agreed that we would use kind voices with each other. We agreed that we would walk in the classroom. We agreed that we would push our chairs in, or whatever it is that you agreed to. You could bring it back to, this is how we have a peaceful, happy classroom. All right. So that's another way to look at team meetings. Teams of adults coming together to help support each other and reach those goals. And then classroom meetings where you can turn it to the children. I guarantee they're going to have a solution where you might be stumped, right? That's always fun. Okay, next. So what is your plan, Stan? What do you plan to do? What do you intend to do? So you've got your SMART goal, you've got your person. When are you going to do it? So do you give yourself a goal to do that within the next week? That would be my recommendation. How about the next 3 days? All right, time-based. I get all hooked up on that. All right, so you've got a goal and you've got a plan, you've got your aha moments, you've got some new information under your belt, you've got a construct of how to look at behaviors in the classroom, a way to look at yourself and how you might get in your own way, right? So moving forward, my hope for you is that you are a part of creating a community that's more cohesive, that's happier, that's safer, that's more harmonious and peaceful, so that everybody is feeling good about it. I know you're thinking, yeah, Amy, yeah, right. That's you're real Pollyanna about that. I feel so strongly about when we can do deep self-reflection and come together as a community that there's nothing that we can overcome. I just believe that. So I hope that you can join me on that as well. Okay, so what's your plan? All right, so that is the end of the big portion of this webinar, of this class. The last part I want to share with you is that in January 2021, there was a big launch. Some of you may have missed it. Some of you may have already joined, but there's something called the Hive that I've got going on. And it's a monthly membership program where you can so you pay monthly, and for that you get one-on-one coaching directly with me, group coaching with a collection of professionals that are in similar situations, right? Like there's a leadership hive, I call them swarms, a leadership swarm, a lead teacher swarm, and a support staff swarm that get together. There for a bit, there was a group that got together to specifically talk about autism in the classroom and how we can best support children who are on the spectrum in our classroom. So that's an idea of those groups that can come together. In addition to the one-on-one coaching and the group coaching that you get professional development every month. So you're invited to everything the Amy Williams Academy puts on. So you have access to the webinars that I create and put out. You have access to all the classes that I create and put out. Let's see. Yeah. And weekly, you get a weekly little short video bursts of inspiration, what's going on in my head, what I've noticed, what I'm curious about, little 4-minute bits of this is what's on my mind, or this is what I'm thinking about, or this is what you guys are asking for. Along with that are resources like templates for creating an interview tool, templates for how to coach others who you are leading, ideas for how to support a rich sensory diet in your classroom, how to speak to parents, how to have difficult conversations with your co-teacher, all those kinds of things. So I would happily invite you to be a part of the Hive. You can go to my website and there's a place to register, and I would love to have you join because we have a great time. All right, thank you for joining me for this. I hope it was useful for you. I hope that if there's any way that I can be of a support for you or help in any way going forward, that you're able to reach out to me. Let's see. My email address is on this last slide. That's having a hard time going forward. But you could find me and follow me on Instagram, Amy Williams Academy on Facebook, and you could certainly reach out to me via email. There it is. So there's my @ on Instagram at Amy Williams Academy. Facebook, same thing. My email, amywilliamsacademy@gmail.com. And of course, my website, amywilliamsacademy.com. So happy to be a resource for you and so help support you in any way that I can so that the children get you at your best and get you at your most curious and your most vulnerable. So with that, I say goodbye. I hope you have a good evening or good afternoon. And yeah, let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear from you. All right. Have a good one. Good night.